They are going to be so excited to find out that it really has nothing to do with anything actually good for the Knicks.
Shout out to the New York Knicks for making the television show twice, because we ain't even have to do that.
Well, I guess the Knicks actually kind of want to not win and do good things, so this might actually all be...
Are we sure about that?
No.
I mean,
incompetence, is it strategic? Is it accidental? It's always hard to tell.
Yeah, that's it. I'm about to say, assuming the Knicks are losing on purpose when we have decades to indicate that they lose when they try to win.
Yeah, it's a fair point, but we start with James Harden. Because the Beard dropped 61 at MSG last night, that's worthy of our first name. He has scored 261 points in his last 5 games, and 0 of them were assisted. If you're one of his teammates, though, how are you feeling about this?
I mean, nobody worked this hard to get to the NBA to be running this Bel Air Academy offense and just passing the ball to Will. That's like right, say, do you think that P.J. Tucker, with all those shoes he got in the closet, looks in the mirror and says, Carlton Banks, that's who I am.
The true hype beast.
Yeah, nobody does this. Like, nobody wants that. The thing is, and I have had questions about whether or not this is really the best way for them to play. It's hard for me to believe that just rolling the ball out to one man strategically is the best way to go. They were plus 19 last night with James Harden on the floor, and they won the game by a mere 4 points.
That is the complexity here. If you are a teammate, on the one hand, you're wondering, I was told basketball was jazz, and yet I am standing here a lot watching this dude shred a massive, epic, historic guitar solo for like 48 minutes. And it is epic because he is now the 5th player all time behind Jordan, Kobe, Wilt, and Elgin Baylor to have multiple 60-point games. This is how he does it. This is how the Rockets have gotten back into the playoff picture. It just doesn't feel sustainable or optimal if you have other guys who can sort of play basketball.
Well, also, and somehow it's just not that much fun. And one would think that seeing something like this, because it's individually incredible, but it is worth noting, they changed the whole structure of the NBA, the rules to change what the game was, because people didn't like to see dudes run ISO, basically. Roll the ball to a dude and be in the position that he's in. Yeah, the rules are put into a place where you're not supposed to be able to do this sort of thing anymore. And he's doing it. And right now, a big part of why he's doing it is he's shooting a step back 3, which is a shot that you would give people because it is such an inefficient shot. Except for him, it's like Steph Curry shooting from half court. It's inefficient for everybody else. I'd be hitting these, though.
Yes, and Mike D'Antoni, when asked in a Sports Illustrated article, what do you do when he's trying these very, very difficult shots? Mike D'Antoni shrugs and says, do you want me to make him more mediocre? Because that is how hard the step-back 3 is, and that's how hard it's been historically. But D'Antoni also pointed out, he imagines that it's not easy for these teammates. And I imagine it's not all that easy for him either, right? Because this is the guy who had pioneered that more jazzy style of play. The 7 seconds or less Suns, move the ball, Steve Nash, all that.
Hold on, no.
James
Harden has redeemed Mike D'Antoni's professional reputation, which was in the toilet after his time with the Lakers. He gonna let this dude do whatever the hell he wants. Now, here's the thing, for these cats for the Rockets, though, they don't even know what to do with the ball anymore. Look at this, P.J. Tucker. You'll notice this little situation here.
Yes.
Eric Gordon inbounds the ball. And apparently P.J. Tucker is like, I'm not allowed to touch the ball.
That is...
He had no... I mean, is he not allowed to touch it?
That's less than a minute to go in the 4th. That is a 3-point game.
Yes,
and that's... Really?
Yes. Dude, that reminds me, I know this cat in Durham who played college ball, and he said the day he learned, he started hating playing ball was because the coach had told him that he wasn't allowed to dribble. And he caught the ball once, and he held it, and nobody came, and they called 10 seconds on him because he wasn't allowed to dribble. That's what P.J. Tucker looked like right there. No, not protest. He wasn't allowed to dribble. Like, P.J. looked like, coach say I can't touch the ball.
Shout out to Noah Vonleh, though. An easy 2 points.
There you go. Name is the Browns. ESPN said Wickersham has a damning look inside the past and present of the Cleveland football team. Owner Jimmy Haslam reportedly insisted on drafting Johnny Manziel, and he nicknamed former team vice president Sashi Brown Obama. He was black and went to Harvard.
Yeah.
But what's the detail that stood out to you?
We got to start with #DP.
No, you don't have to. You're just going to
We have to, and I have to do it because this is the parody of the Browns come to life. Apparently, there was a market exercise in the building where they wanted to see how the fans felt about the dog pound, #DP. Except it turned out that when you go on Twitter and look up #DP, you get a double entendre of sorts that is actually indescribable on normal FCC-regulated airwaves. So, I can't describe it more, but that's kind of a thing that went on for 20 minutes. 20 minutes.
I would say on that, though, to be fair, somebody should have figured that out a long time ago, that was the wrong hashtag. The problem is the only way for you to say that you know what's wrong with the hashtag is to say that you know what's wrong with the hashtag. There were so many things that went into this, but they seem to be dysfunctional just because Jimmy Haslam doesn't seem to know what he's doing, but actively wants to know what he's doing. Seems to have taken steps that for most people would lead you to ultimately learn how to do what you're doing. He worked with the Steelers, and so he wanted to get his own team, but he goes in, he's been in meetings, he's done all these things, he asks all the questions, and then he goes and he messes everything up.
Yes, and this is a story about ownership. This is a story of a fish rotting from the head. This is a story of a guy who, because the FBI intervened in his family business, could not profit in the same way from those truck stops. And so he turns his attention to micromanaging, to having conversations with all these employees who wonder, oh, wow, this is a guy who's really interested in what I have to say, never realizing that he's actually politically pitting everybody against each other.
It's also worth noting that they had a front office that didn't want to take Johnny Manziel. He took Johnny Manziel. They had a front office that did not want to hire Hugh Jackson. They hired Hugh Jackson anyway. Everything that went on with Hugh Jackson starts from right there at that moment. They decided they were on a tank it out program. Hugh Jackson looked around and was like, that's going to get me fired. And therefore, he tried to do things that were going completely the opposite way. Mike Pettin was the head coach one time, and Mike Pettin was so scarred from his experience that the man don't want to be a head coach no more.
No.
Right? He is like, I will be defensive coordinator all the way out. I don't want to be the head coach. And maybe my favorite thing about this is this team really has two owners. Jimmy Haslam and his wife, Dee. And his wife, Dee, who runs the business operations, does not like the fact that she does not get credit for also being an owner of the team, which is to say the owner don't get along with the owner. What?
And there was a time when this was the shining, analytically driven city on a hill.
Shining.
It was. They had Paul DePodesta, the aforementioned Sashi Brown. Dude, they were doing stuff that was progressive and interesting, but they all forgot that there is no such thing as a halfway tank. There isn't. And so you had all of these people arguing about credit, preserving themselves, lobbying for draft picks, and it all fell apart. They couldn't even be bad on purpose well.
I'd just like to note that there's a segment of people who actually called the Browns the shining city on the hill just because they tried to use some math. You ain't even getting no results out the math.
They were so close to being so much less good. Anyway, last name, Blake Griffin. Blake was upset after beating the Anthony Davis-less Pelicans because of how close the game ended up being, though. But one teammate felt differently. Let's watch.
It's just nothing to be proud of, man. This is just masking our issue. You know what I mean? Like we gotta lock in and finish games. Like,
dude, you want to be happy.
Focus at the end of games has been awful. That's why we lose games like this. So I'm not necessarily. I'm happy with the win, but I'm not necessarily happy with how we close this game out.
It was a great start for you guys tonight, and that has been an issue at times this season. How much did you kind of take it upon yourself to get guys going through?
I'll get you in a minute.
Read the room, Reggie Jackson.
How's he supposed to know?
Turn around, I would say. Do you think, though, that Blake wants out of Detroit?
Did he ever want in?
No.
I mean, like, when you start talking about people wanting out of a city, you're normally talking about people who have their own volition, signed to go there, or got drafted, and you're happy about that or whatever. Blake Griffin got sent there. He woke up one day in a team that put him on a T-shirt with Obama and Einstein and Nelson Mandela.
Gandhi was on that.
And then they sent him to Detroit. He never wanted to be there. They got one other good player and nothing else that's going on the roster. And now there is Blake Griffin, a man who fancies himself a stand-up comedian, who cannot find the humor in this at all.
He can't find the joy in the fact that he just had a 37-9-7 evening. He can't find happiness in the fact that he's finally proving all those people who just said he's a dunker, can't shoot. He's proving them all wrong, except that they're also 9-8 when he scores 30, and all of this just gets dark.
Well, I mean, dude, the thing is on top of this is Reggie Jackson, who the guys on his last team, basically to a man, do not like him.
They
right?
do not.
So Blake Griffin is explaining, I feel like this team is immature. I feel like they don't pay enough attention. I feel like they focus on the wrong things.
Discipline.
Yeah, we got to win, but this don't feel right. And then next thing you know, this dude is coming through like, I'm so excited that we got ourselves a victory. And he's stuck there. There's nothing that he can do.
And I would say that this is now the standard bearer for awkwardness for any sort of NBA interview, except we have this.
Yeah, that's the gold medal winner.
We have
right
this
there.
still.
Yeah, the time that Stan Van Gundy was talking about how Dwight Howard tried to get him fired and be BSing about it, and then Dwight came over and was like, who would like a heaping helping of BS?
Dwight Howard and Stan Van Gundy, thank you for having terrible communication.
No, I mean, well, apparently Stan's communication was great. He found out everything he needed to know. Coming up next, should the Steelers re-up on Ben Roethlisberger?
Listen to this show through Apple Podcasts. Bomani's too. I've got a podcast. Where's yours, Pablo?
Hi.
High Noon is beamed to you from above the Heineken River Deck at Pier 17.
This is a great quote from David Fisdale when asked if he's worried Enes Kanter will become a distraction. What are we going to do, lose more games?
Yeah, hopefully. Zion, man. Right here, this city, this rain.
If you care about Zion, you don't want him to come here. Quote, I think Ben has some good years left. I still say he's close to being in the prime of his career. Says Steelers president Art Rooney II about Ben Roethlisberger and wanted to sign him to a contract extension. Big Ben turns 37 in 2 months. So what do you make of this?
I make of it that it is a mistake to look at Tom Brady and Drew Brees, the examples that they are referring to implicitly, a 40-year-old plus quarterback succeeding into their 40s, as comparison points for Big Ben. Those guys have meticulous diets. Tom Brady won't eat strawberries. Drew Brees is doing even more secretive things he won't tell us about. Big Ben is this monster truck, Bo. He's a monster truck with all of the mileage and nicks on him, and I don't think they're not comparable.
Oh, see, I'm not sure. I mean, all the stuff those guys say they're doing and everything else, What did Drew Brees look like the last time you saw him play? When he was out here throwing them...
At the end of that game?
When he was throwing them ducks out there. I'm not sure how much any of that goes. I just know this. With quarterbacks that are great, it's all good until it's not. And you don't really have that much of an indicator along the way that it's going to be all bad. But when it comes, the fall-off is immediate. Think about what happened with Brett Favre, who was as good as he'd ever been in 2009. The collapse came in 2010. Peyton Manning, who had been as good as he was the last couple of years before he had that injury in the second to last year, and then it went off the cliff. So as much as he says he's got years ahead, he may be right. The problem is trying to guess how many years it is. Because if you guess 3 and it's only 2, oh boy, that third year going to be a monster.
And the phrase close to is doing so much work in this quote because he's close to his prime. He's in his 30s. He's on the wrong side of that. And the reason why I mention all of that stuff about diet is that this is what I think of, Bo, when I think of Big Ben, if we have that photo. This is how I imagine Big Ben, a guy who threatened to retire multiple times. This was in 2017. And when he said, I'm thinking about retiring, we all understood. Yeah. Because this is how he lives his life. No. Iced up all the time.
But he could probably give you another year. Or maybe he does it and they stink.
Next quote. I don't want to get into discussing that right now. That's a Jerry question. Said Cowboys VP Stephen Jones when asked about Jason Garrett entering the last year of his deal with no extension yet. Is this a big deal?
Oh, no. I believe that this is a thing. First of all, the fact that Stephen Jones said that's a Jerry question makes me wonder what wonderful off-the-record things Stephen Jones has to say about Jason Garrett, because it sounds like I myself would have got him up out of here a long time ago. But you don't put a coach typically in a lame duck situation. It becomes difficult. It affects stability, right? It becomes a little difficult for the people to respect a dude that you know is ultimately going to be gone. My thing is this. The way that Jerry has talked this dude up over all this time, all you got to say right now is we're working on that. Jerry's not saying that, and neither is Steven. So why is he still there?
No, Jerry is saying stuff like, quote, I doodle on it every day. I do. I doodle on everything. Noodle and doodle on it. I do like a madman if you ever got my noodling. All talking about contemplating whether he wants to keep Jason Garrett.
Pablo, what does that mean? You just threw that word salad in front of him.
Because noodling and doodling and looking like a madman fits him if he's in fact looking at next year much like we all looked at this year. All of this is going to replay. We're going to have an overachieving Cowboys team going under, then over, then under, and we're still going to be wondering, is Jason Garrett still going to be employed? If you enjoy that, that sounds, pretty much like a madman.
Well, the bottom line to me is this. If he is there on the lame duck year of the contract, he won't be there the year after.
No.
Period.
No.
Quote, we didn't want to go to overtime. Said Greg Popovich about why he left DeMar DeRozan on the bench for the final play of last night's loss to the 76ers when the team needed a 3 to win. Let's watch how it ended.
Remaining. DeRozan to the
rim.
Simmons the rebound. Spurs need to
that was a great play by Wilson Chandler.
Yes.
Still in the lead.
The big block by former Nick Wilson Chandler.
He's a former everything. Here we go.
1.1 seconds left.
Yeah. Nobody could, get open. or anything like that.
No.
All right, Pablo, so how should DeRozan feel about this decision?
He should feel like a guy who has been told before to develop a three-pointer and hasn't. He is a wonderful player who's had a really strange voyage through the NBA, going to a team he didn't want to go to, but playing for a coach who's really good, but who also doesn't really care about threes unless they're playing in a game that he doesn't want to go to overtime in, apparently, because that was the other part of this, Bo. They didn't care about the tie. They didn't.
But ain't the other part. It's the quote, right? He's like, we didn't want to go to overtime. It didn't sound anything as though I thought this is the best move, da-da-da. I wasn't going to be here 1 minute longer. I had enough of this arena. I was ready to go home, which, by the way, play for the tie at home, play for the win on the road. It's a common axiom that's at place. And look, if he can't shoot a three, then you don't put him out there. The thing I would say, though, is he can kind of shoot a two, and the Sixers didn't know that you were playing for the three, so maybe he'd have been a bit of a diversion.
Yeah, unless they saw the stat that said of the 186 players who shot at least 500 threes since 2013, he is 185th.
Yeah. No, they wouldn't guard. I'm saying they wouldn't guard him on the three, but the two was an option. The Sixers don't know you won't shoot the three, so cut him to the basket or something.
And I credit DeRozan for not being more offended because he kind of got it after the game. He was like, yeah, we wanted to win.
Yeah.
I'm me.
He knows who he is.
Yeah.
All right, now coming up next, did you know Sean McVay is half of Bill Belichick's age?
$2.99 for a Car Hop Classic. What a steal.
Steal. That's a heist. Put this on.
Disguise.
I don't think I can eat in this.
It's all part of the plan, my friend.
Get a quarter.
The Knicks could do to get into our show, like positive. That's right. We got one left for the people.
I have a surprise.
Day's number 33. That's how Rams coach Sean McVay turns the day, and it's also the difference in years between McVay and 66-year-old Bill Belichick, which is the biggest age gap between Super Bowl head coaches ever. Who do you trust more in the Super Bowl, the oldest coach ever or the youngest?
I want to say the youngest because welcome Sean McVay to the 33 club. It's great being 33. All of that is so. But
what?
I am afraid of this man, Bo. I am afraid of Bill Belichick as he should be. And if Bill Belichick has been closely watching the Rams offense as he has, I don't think he should be that scared, right? If Todd Gurley isn't right, this is a game that may not be as close as people are anticipating.
Well, quiet as it's kept, it's just as impressive that Belichick is in the Super Bowl at 66 as it is really that McVay is at 33. Guys run out of gas typically in their 50s, right? He is the oldest coach to be in a Super Bowl, right? This has been implied that guys in his zone don't do that very often. Where I disagree with you, though, on this idea that it might not be that close in the scheme and everything else. I get where you're coming from. That's the dude that's got to figure out something to do with Aaron Donald. And he doesn't seem to really have any answers for that. Like the description he gave of Aaron Donald is unblockable. If you're going to bring it to Tom Brady, you're going to bring it up the middle with pressure, which they are able to do. So, yeah, the Rams offense hasn't exactly been great. I could argue that the Patriots offense, that last game against the Chiefs, I mean, that was a pretty bad defense. They only put 14 points on in that first half, for example. I still think it's going to be a good game.
Yeah, I would be concerned about Aaron Donald. I would be concerned about Sue. I would be concerned about the goats of the Giants defensive line and the Eagles defensive line. But I just cannot bet against this terrifying 66-year-old man. Just can't do it.
I ain't scared. In closing, last weekend, someone brought a sign to Cameron Indoor Stadium that referred to R.J. Barrett as the Maple Mamba. Get it? Anyway, people are trying to make this catch on, and it has to stop. I realize many Americans think Canadians are corny, but we don't have to force corniness upon them. I mean, look right here. It's Zion Williamson being a bad teammate.
Mamba going to take off for RJ? I think Maple Mamba is going to take off.
Hey!
Oh, no.
That reminds me of when I was in here the other day, and there's a dude around here who got a bad haircut, and somebody asked him about his haircut, and you try to figure out how to discuss the bad haircut without saying that you got a bad haircut, and you end up lying to your friend. He's not here. You end up lying to your friend under those circumstances.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, yeah, it looks all right. You know his haircut is bad.
I tried to say, I've seen worse, and you got on me for that immediately.
Because, well, like, what did you think you were accomplishing telling him I've seen worse?
Which happens to be all I got right now. I've seen worse nicknames than Maple Mamba. The issue, though, is that do you really want to be the Maple Mamba when the flip side of being the Mamba is being a guy who jacks up 1 million shots and makes a little percentage of them?
He clearly wants to be the guy that jacks up 1 million shots because he is the dude who jacks up 1 million shots and makes a small percentage of them. Coincidentally, he's kind of that guy, too. No, we got a whole generation of kids that want to be Kobe Bryant.
Yes.
Right? They are all over the place, which is going to lead to a generation of really frustrated coaches.
No, Russell Westbrook, Paul George, James Harden, all of these guys worship at the foot of the Mamba. I would just caution against adopting the Mamba as your nickname when, you've yet to even make the league yet.
And maple? You can't come up with some other kind of Mamba? You sound like a slab of bacon. Like you tell me the bacon got some maple, I holler at you.
Kind of delicious. In closing, it is weird being Alonzo Trier right now. The good is that he just dropped 31 on the Rockets last night. The bad is that he gave up a huge late three to Eric Gordon. Except that Knicks fans actually want the Knicks to lose, as aforementioned, so they celebrated his non-defense. But Alonzo Trier still slid into one fan's DMs to defend said non-defense. Let's watch how this happened. So there is supposed to be better defense on our man Eric Gordon there. That was 109 to 110, seconds draining. But you'll see Trier fighting through the pick to get back on his man, and he explained, quote, "It was supposed to be a switch, dumb bleep. You think I just let a bleep walk up and shoot a three? SMH, y'all fans don't think." I don't know how I would feel if I was Tim Hardaway Jr., the guy he is implicitly throwing under the DM bus right there. But, Bo, I kind of like this spirit from him. I like the fact that Alonzo Trier is out here being outspoken because I've had my own Twitter exchange with him. Do you remember it? Do you remember this? Do you remember this exchange that I had with Alonzo Trier, new New York Knicks phenomenon? Someone pointed out that they saw that Alonzo Trier was part Korean. I said, "Is this true?" And he replied, "Yup," immediately. And Bo, the prophets warned about this. They said after Jeremy Lin went away, there'd be another phenomenon. Speaking of great nicknames, Trier sanity? Is that what we have? Is this what the prophecy foretold? Me, him, brought together to save the Knicks. Highly questionable, I guess.
I got that. Highly questionable today.
Okay.